Mr. Ansip, in June 2013, the Commission published a report called Against Lock-in and demanded a new policy to overcome the dependence of public administrations in Europe on a few proprietary software suppliers. When and why the Commission abandoned this policy?
I don't think we abandoned this policy, but I think today's situation is much better than it was just 4 years ago. Because today, when talking about our data storages, for example, data centers, then 80% of those data centers, they are using open source software. They are based on Linux and not on some kind of other solutions. When talking about e-government solutions in our member states, then many of those solutions they were created just because of the fact that they got funding from EU funds and according to our rules, when using EU taxpayers' money, you have to allow to use the same software solution also by other governments, by other institutions. It means they are using open source software. And I would like to say this situation today is much better than it was just 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, but on the other hand, for mail and office applications, nearly all public administrations in Europe, from Portugal to Finland, are still completely dependent on Microsoft. Many IT experts told us that this makes Europe so dependent that it is sort of a digital colony. Do you agree?
Somehow, of course, we have to agree that when Americans they decided to invest $10 billion into digital solutions, then we used to discuss about 50,000 EQs projects, and if you didn't make those very first investments, of course, there are some kind of consequences, and the only solution is to invest more to catch up, but. As always, situations they are very different, and solutions for different problems they can be also very different. In some cases, we can promote tailor-made suits. It's a good solution to use also open source software, but in some other situations, to buy T-shirts, it's good enough and it works. The same story when using software.
So but this year, your own department, commissioned and published a study done by French and German consultants, and this report or the study stated, I quote, "Only with open source software can otherwise oppressive dictatorship of the large software vendors be disrupted, who so far still are the only industry large enough to deal with the complexity of modern software." These are strong words. Are these experts wrong?
I agree. To promote usage of open source software, it's a good thing, and then to use open source software, I agree. It's beneficial in many situations, but not in all those situations. We have to promote those tailor-made suits. In some situations, a la carte is too expensive. Fast food is also acceptable. So it depends on situation. But I can't agree with those people who say that there are just solutions provided by Microsoft or Oracle, and we don't have those European solutions. Let's remember about SAP, for example. I remember
but most governments.
I used bookkeeping software, for example, always created by SAP, and it was the best one which was available, and I'm really happy with this software. But in many other situations, European software producers, they are able to provide really good software which is able to compete with those software solutions created by Oracle
but
and
it seems regarding the mail applications and the office applications, office automation, yeah, which make the big part of public administration, of course. Regarding this, it seems that the dependence even becomes stronger, because there are many special programs for public administrations which build on the basis of Microsoft software, yeah, and so the public administrations in Europe become ever more dependent on this particular supplier. Isn't that a big problem?
It's so. Maybe 5 years ago, this market share of Microsoft was much bigger than today. I don't have those concrete figures, but I know that just right now I'm upgrading this iOS 11.1.1.
Yes, I know,
so
because the market in general.
In my mobile phone,
yes,
there is Android, and then
of course, you're right. You're right,
increasing.
But the market in general has grown, of course, because of additional devices and the mobile business and so on and so on. But in particular, what public administrations do, yeah, how they work. They use this office automation applications, and this is more or less all over Europe. It's the same, and makes the whole public administrations in Europe dependent on this supplier. I think it was because on this reason why the European Parliament demanded, in the aftermath of the Snowden revelations, you remember, the European Parliament demanded with huge majority that the EC and the member states, I quote, to build up as a strategic priority measure a strong and autonomous IT key resource capability based on open standards and open source software in order to regain competitiveness in the strategic sector of IT services. And, interesting, to use public procurement as leverage by making EU security and privacy standards a key requirement in the public procurement of IT goods. Why has this strong demand by the European Parliament been disregarded more or less by the Commission and by all the governments? Was the Parliament completely wrong?
I don't think so, but we are using procurement systems to buy some new software. It's an open competition, and I'm absolutely sure we always bought the best software which was available.
Sorry, for desktop software, for office automation and for mail services, there is no market. There is no competition.
Practically, I just said that
maybe
10 years ago we had only Microsoft. Today we have iOS, we have also Android.
These are for completely
myself, then I'm using much more Apple devices than devices based on Microsoft
but these are for other purposes. But for classic administrational purposes, it is. There are frameworks.
What suggests then?
No, I would like to know.
We had to invest already 15 years ago much more into software development, into digital solutions, and now when we have this understanding that it was a mistake to deal at that time when Americans decided to invest $10 billion within the 5 years into ICT. Then we were discussing about 50,000 EQs project. So it means now we have to invest into digital. We have to deal, for example, with the cybersecurity issues you mentioned, as we all know, it's not only about some kind of software producers. 95% of those cyber incidents, cyber attacks, they were available or possible in the European Union just because of some kind of human errors. So we have to educate our people. We have to deal much more seriously with the cyber hygiene. This is not so easy as you said.
No, I come to this point.
Let's say change our operating systems and no cyber threats anymore. So I can't agree with you.
Nobody said that. But I will come to this point. But again, to the Parliament's decisions. When the Parliament took this decision after the Snowden revelations, 1 year later, they went back, and then again the Parliament complained, I quote, It is disappointed by the lack of action by the Commission to follow up the detailed recommendations made in the resolution for increasing IT security and online privacy in the EU. Is there a huge gap between the Commission and the Parliament in this issue?
When talking about online privacy, then I'm happy to say that we already have a general data protection regulation, and our people, they can be really secure. It's absolutely clear that their personal data are protected in the European Union. We launched also a new e-privacy regulation. It's also about guaranteeing confidentiality of communications when talking about e-privacy directive. This is only about telecom operators, but according to our proposals, it doesn't matter. Telecom operators or OTTs, they have to guarantee confidentiality of communication. So
well, there's a big difference.
We're dealing with those issues.
Yes, but there's a big difference. In proprietary software, you don't know the source code. So your own security agencies cannot test and verify what's really happening on computers being operated with this kind of software. Isn't that such a security risk? When you cannot look into the source code, when you have a black box operating the public IT?
It's always better to know how it works, and then you can prepare yourself to protect in different situations. But as I said, as a rule, we are buying the best software with the best price. And in some situations, this open source software is the best solution. And when using EU taxpayers' money as a rule for some kind of tailor-made solutions, then practically the only solution is to use open source software. And as I mentioned already, when talking about our data centers, then
I know.
80% of those data centers are based on Linux software, which is open source software. So it depends on situation. If somebody will provide better, more efficient solutions for my mailbox, I'm ready to take this. But I don't think I myself, I have to visit always a la carte restaurants. I don't think in all the situations I have to wear tailor-made suits. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, but on the other hand,
it's more expensive, and in many cases, you know, sport dress or T-shirt, it's a better solution than to have tailor-made suits.
Well, but on the other hand, all really dangerous intrusions in public IT, for example, in the German Bundestag, in the European Parliament, in the EU Commission, they were engineered with security gaps in Microsoft software. So,
sorry, I have to interrupt you, but I can't agree with this because, as we know,
this is a matter of fact.
Let's talk about the Internet of Things. Last autumn, those bad guys in the United States were able to create botnets based on connected devices. And in this way, they were able to generate quite heavy DDoS, denial of services attacks.
Yeah,
and they were able to take down even global service providers in this way. And according to prognosis, we will have around 50 billion connected devices by 2020. It's so easy today to create botnets based on connected devices. Nothing to do with this Windows or
I didn't talk about botnets. I talked about intrusions in public IT systems. You know, this is public.
The same story. It's possible to attack also those public systems using the Internet of Things, using connected devices. But the Internet of Things, it's a real need for us to connect those devices. For example, if we will be able to cut all those energy consumption peaks and lows, we will be able to save in the European Union 100 billion euros a year. So it's not an option not to connect those devices. We have to go on with this, but we have to protect our systems. And it's not just about some kind of operational system.
The critic is that by using this Microsoft monoculture in public IT systems, these public IT systems are being held very vulnerable. For example, Microsoft is an American corporation, yeah? So it's subject to American law, to the US Patriot Act, and so they are obliged to support US security and intelligence agencies in surveillance and in spying foreign clients. Yeah? According to many legal experts, this fact alone makes the use of US proprietary software for public IT incompatible with obligations of our constitutions.
I don't think Microsoft is serving some dark forces, and
this has already been
good,
proven. They have
software solution.
They have been part of the PRISM program.
Yeah, if somebody is able to provide something better, with higher quality, with a cheaper price, of course everybody will buy this better with a cheaper price. And until this is the best solution, everybody will continue to use this solution. But once again, I would like to remember that some years ago we had only Microsoft. But today, yeah, those are also American systems, but we have iOS. And I myself, yeah, I like iOS
which
more
is
than
also
Microsoft,
an American proprietary software.
But I don't want to promote some kind of software solution. Android, which is an open source of software, also very popular in many different situations. The best solution, but it depends on situation. Where you will use iOS, Android, or Windows.
This is an important point. The big digital corporations, Amazon, Facebook, Google, they all work with their own open source based operating system, because obviously they would never give another software supplier access to their systems. So isn't it absurd that our states and the EU institutions give an American software supplier access to public IT systems, while even their competitors in the US don't do it? Yeah?
In general approach, I of course agree with you. But according to my wording, this general approach means that we have to invest much more on digital. So we missed the starting point of this competition, and now we have to catch up. We have to invest much more into all kinds of digital solutions. We have to invest much more to create our own supercomputers, for example. It's not normal when, for example, European industries, research institutes, universities are using 30% from global supercomputing capacities, and we are able to provide just 5% of those resources. So I'm happy that we have already 11 European countries who decided to create our own exascale computers, European computers, but money is needed, cooperation between member states is needed. The whole concept of digital single market is also about our independence.
I fully agree with your approach, but the interesting thing is that in this special, you may call it market segment, yeah? Desktop, office automation, how to handle files, how to handle mails. In this sector of the market, nothing happens, nothing changes. Yeah, this is very different.
Said that we had one operations system. Now we have 3 already main systems. We have much more of those systems.
But not for these applications. This is very different in China. China has announced the migration of the whole administration and also of the financial system to a Chinese open source based operating system by 2019. Why do the Chinese protect their digital sovereignty, but not the Europeans?
Once again, if somebody is able to provide a better product, of course, with pleasure, all EU institutions, member states, they will
but
take
probably this will
product.
only happen on political initiative. I give you an example.
But a political initiative is also about funding policies.
Of course, yeah.
And as I said, practically 100% of those products we use to invest into, they are based on open source software. This is a rule. When using EU taxpayers' money to create some kind of new software solutions, others, they have to get some benefits also from those investments.
Of course, but it's only in other sectors of the market. I have an example, which maybe can
really happy if there will be just one problem to fix, and then we can be
no, but in particular, sorry, but this is a very important. This is a very important sector.
Anymore.
This is a very important sector. You know, I'm not a dogmatic, but I tell you why. Public administrations, they don't only handle secret information of military or intelligence agency. They handle all very private data of European citizens. You know, my income, my health data, whatever, the state knows everything about me. So I think we have the right that the state is also obliged to defend this data against intrusion from foreign countries and foreign things. And this is not possible with Microsoft software. I give you an example regarding the dependence on the American satellite navigation, the GPS. That the EU decided that this is a matter of sovereignty, and so we decided that we have to get to our own satellite navigation. That's the reason why we have the Galileo project. It was also very expensive, but maybe it was worth it, because on the other hand, not to have an own satellite navigation means that the Americans have the power to switch Europe off. But it's the same with office administration. It's the same.
That's kind of plans, but I agree with you. To have your own software, it's always better than to use others solutions created by somebody else. But I'm supporter of free markets, and I'm not a supporter of protectionism. For a car manufacturing industry, for example, it was so important to get their own mapping system. Because yes, maybe somebody else, some global service providers, they were even ready to provide those mapping systems free of charge, but they wanted to get all the data.
But would it be protectionist if you go against a monopoly? That's not really protectionist policy.
But it's allowed to have monopolies also in the European Union, and it's allowed to have dominating positions by companies also acting here in Europe based on European capital, but it's not allowed to misuse this dominating power in the marketplace, and our competition rules are dealing exactly with those issues. So in this meaning, I can't agree with you when you are saying that when going against monopolies or trying to regulate them, we are acting as a protectionist or something like that. No, nothing like this.
No, this is what I say, to go against...
We have our own competition rules here in the European Union,
which are systematically violated when it comes to office automation software in the public sector. All governments and even the Commission does regularly, on a regular basis, a framework agreement with Microsoft. And the only competition which is then organized for public procurement is competition between Microsoft resellers.
So what's the solution? Not to use Microsoft? You think Microsoft is like a black box? This window is full of enemies, and let's prohibit the usage of
the solution,
Microsoft software.
The proposal for the solution came from the European Parliament.
I would like to say that in digital world, nothing will stay as a real secret for a long period of time, which is maybe business secret for some companies today. It will be very public tomorrow, thanks to human factor, but bad people, hackers, they are working with those operations. integration systems, scientific institutes, universities are working with those issues, and to hide some kind of backdoors which will allow to misuse, for example, this information which is available through operating systems. Practically, it's not possible, or politically, it's not possible. It will be suicide for those software companies who are dealing, or who wants to deal with that kind of practices.
If we ever realize or know it.
But I just said
that
we will know it anyway. We will know it anyway. It will not stay as a top secret forever. What is secret today, it's very public.
You asked for a solution. One solution has been proposed by the European Parliament itself to make the public source public source code a precondition in procurement for software for public IT. So this would change the whole landscape, and by this start a real new development in Europe.
As I said already, situations are different, and in some situations it's good to use open source software and to use tailor-made suits, and in other situations fast foods is also good enough. So it depends on price, it depends on needs, and I don't want to say that global service providers, they are like enemies for European citizens. They are not trying to serve us. They are not trying to sell high quality product or us. They would like just to spy or to steal some of our secrets or something like this.
Not because they want, but because they are obliged to by their government.
It's real simplification, and it's too black and white world. It's more about comparison theories than about real life.
Well, the Italian army has migrated to open source. The French Gendarmerie Nationale has completely changed their system, and
exactly what I was talking about. You know, in some situations you have to be absolutely sure that there are no backdoors, nothing like this, and nobody will get access to this information, and so on. But as a rule, it doesn't matter. Open source software or this software created by Microsoft, Oracle, or by some European producers, we cannot say that in some source of software this is absolutely guaranteed. Nobody was able to hack into those systems nowadays.
But at least
you can't be 100% sure
of course
that your privacy, your information is fully protected. We have to work with those issues every day to improve protection of our privacy, of our information, and I would like to say that the European Union, European Commission is exactly dealing with those issues every day. We just recently launched our cybersecurity proposal. It's exactly about
last question, because you're in a hurry. Next year, the current contract between the Commission and Microsoft will end. Will you negotiate a new one? A new framework contract for all EU institutions?
Well, this is not in my portfolio. How we will act next year, we will see. But I'm absolutely sure that this solution for EU institutions will be the best one. And of course, I prefer to use always open tender. And as I said already, in our data centers, 80% of those data centers that they are running on open source software. So things are changing, but it's not because some producers they are good producers and some other producers are bad producers. We would like to get best software with a affordable price.
But for the Office applications, there is no public tender. You make a framework contract with Microsoft every 4 years. There is no competition. There, other potential suppliers are not even invited to present their solutions.
Anyway, once again, I can't agree with you. In this very device, I can't see Windows, I can't see Microsoft. No Microsoft, but I'm using this.
But this is not what is used in
this device much more than this device here. So I can't agree that in all those smartphones we are using just Microsoft software and
no, not in smartphones, but in the offices of our administrations it is. Sorry, sir, but it is. So it is currently the practice that there is no competition for office applications.
Yeah. And my proposal is to invest much more into digital solutions, and in this way we will be one day able to produce better software than today's producers they are able to provide. So this is the only solution. If some people they think that just to prohibit usage of some software solutions, it will be good for us, then it will be a huge mistake, because if you will start just to create something new and you hope it will be better, then maybe the result will be opposite. It will be open for all kind of attacks, open for all kind of hackings, etc. And you will lose speeds in developments in other areas. And I don't think it's so simple that we can just prohibit usage of some kind of softwares and no problems anywhere.
If we would
no cyber attacks, no cyber incidents, anything. We will be happy. All our people, they will be protected. And
nobody has claimed this, and not even me.
I would like to say you said this.
No,
so this is the only problem we have in the European Union.
No, there are a lot of problems.
Don't even think about your high-performance computing, about your exascale computers, about cyber-security solutions. Just deal with Microsoft, and then all the people will be happy in the European Union. So if this will be a real solution,
no, there are a lot of other problems, but the Microsoft issue is the elephant in the room, which nobody wants to talk about, and that is the reason why we do this film.
Okay, then my question to you. You are a journalist, I'm not, but anyway, what happened with those data centers in the European Union? I said 80% of those data centers are running on basis of open source software. Not they are not using Microsoft software. How it happened?
This is a real progress, and I agree with you. This is good to good to have it.
And I'm happy that somebody was able to create for data centers better software than those global service providers. This also open source software, but quite global already. But anyway, open source software. Somebody was able to provide better product, and it's not political decision. I don't think we have to intervene politically in economical issues. So we have to invest more. We have to create better software with higher quality. Price has to be affordable. We have to compete globally. And to compete globally, at first, we have to deal with the fragmentation in the European Union. This is a real headache. Europe is full of creativity. We have a lot of really promising startups. But those startups, they are not, as a rule, able to scale up here in the European Union. When we will go on with this fragmentation in the European Union, we will send a really bad message to our startup. Stay at home or go to the United States, where they have a huge single market with more than 300 million
I tell you,
customers.
If we make open source a criterion in public procurement of software for the public information technology systems, this would create exactly this kind of alternative you are looking for. And this would overcome this monopoly. Currently, all European governments do framework contracts with Microsoft every 4 years, and the monopoly is continued forever and is not breaking up. So we have to change the procedures.
Do you really think that if we will have 28 types of open source software in 28 member states, at least 28, then we will be able to compete on global level with the bigger producers?
To make open source the criterion would be a big bang for the European software industry. I think I'm 100% sure in a short period of time we would have great solutions for the public IT independent of the United States.
That's good.